Hey Kids Club, I'm Chris.
And I'm May.
Merry Christmas!
Ooh, and that's T.
I've got presents. Whoa. Wait, but it's not Christmas yet.
Well then, Merry Pre-Christmas.
Oh, you mean Advent.
New what I like, 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 new what I like.
Oh, flappa-dappa moo, we said a word that's new.
Wait, is the new word platypus?
Nobody said platypus.
Oh, then it must be Advent. What's Advent?
Oh, Advent is great. It's when we celebrate waiting.
Celebrate waiting? Ugh, who wants to celebrate waiting?
Fair point. It's not always fun to wait, but it's an important part of God's story.
Really?
Yeah. Remember? God created the world and everything in it. The oceans, the trees, the animals, the clouds, everything. It was perfect. Then, God made people to live with him together in this perfect world. But people weren't perfect. They disobeyed God or sinned and messed up God's perfect world. Because of sin, God was separated from people, his favorite creation. But because God loves us more than anything, God planned a rescue. He wanted to be with his people again, together. So God promised he would rescue his people, and he told them over and over again. God kept telling his people that he would rescue them because it didn't happen right away. We don't know exactly why it didn't happen right away, but we do know that God kept reminding his people that something good was coming, but they had to wait. God's people wondered, would the rescuer be the sort of king they were used to? Or maybe a super strong soldier? Questions to ask while you're waiting. It would be a baby named Jesus, God's son. Jesus was totally human and totally God. He taught all over and healed people inside and out, and even performed miracles. He lived a perfect life. He never sinned, not once. But he chose to take the punishment for our sin by dying on a cross. But Jesus didn't stay dead. 3 days later, notice the waiting here? He came back to life, and he's alive today. And now, if we choose to believe Jesus rescued us, we can be part of God's family too. When we're part of God's family, our sin is forgiven, and we get to be with God together forever. God loves us, and nothing will ever change that. And you never, ever have to wait for God's love. It's there all the time.
So, Advent is about celebrating waiting, but it's also about preparing for something good.
Right. So maybe it'll help to use your imagination. Picture this. If we told you, wait here, but didn't tell you anything else like how long or what for, you'd get pretty bored and it'd probably be really hard to wait.
Definitely.
But if we told you to wait here, and then we would all get to go on a trip to an amusement park, you'd still be waiting, but you'd also be preparing, right?
Oh, definitely. I would be planning which rides to go on, what shoes I want to wear, what snacks I want to bring.
Yeah, you'd still be waiting, but you'd be excited.
Totally.
Because you were preparing for something good.
Yeah.
Well, God did that with his people too. He prepared them for Jesus, something really good.
Oh, better than anything else.
Better than anything ever.
Right. He prepared his people for Jesus long before Jesus was born. Watch this.
God's story, preparing for Jesus. So part of God's story is about how he prepared us for Jesus, and it begins like this. Remember when God created a perfect garden? He then created a perfect family, Adam and Eve, to live in the garden with him forever. He trusted them with life as long as they obeyed one rule. Unfortunately, Adam and Eve didn't trust God, and they disobeyed. Now Adam, Eve, everyone would have to die, separating us from God forever. This made God very sad. But he had a plan. He knew that he could still save his people through a great rescue, Jesus. Jesus was a big deal, and just like any big deal, people had to get ready for him. It's like before a big movie comes out, you watch the previews so you know what's coming. Well, Jesus was such a big deal that his previews started thousands of years before he came. The first preview is about a man named Abraham. God promised to make Abraham the father of God's special family. God gave Abraham one special son to start the family, Isaac. Now Abraham knew that one day he would have to die because of what happened in the garden. Every time Abraham did something wrong, God could have said, okay, because you've done this bad thing, You now have to die. But he didn't. Instead, God said, how about killing a lamb instead? It can die so you don't have to. Thank you, said Abraham. But one day, God asked Abraham to do something different. God said, okay, because you've done this bad thing, your son Isaac has to die. This made Abraham very sad. But he decided to trust him anyway, even though this meant that he would never have the giant family God had promised. When Isaac asked where the sacrifice was, Abraham said, God will provide it. And guess what? He did. A ram died so Isaac didn't have to. The second preview happened hundreds of years later. Abraham's family, the Israelites, had gotten huge, but they were stuck as slaves in Egypt under a mean king called Pharaoh. He would not let the Israelites leave, so God said, okay, because Pharaoh has done this bad thing, every firstborn son in the land of Egypt has to die. The bad news was this meant that the Israelite sons would have to die along with the Egyptian sons. But the good news was God, once again, created a rescue plan. God said, anyone who kills a lamb and paints the blood on their door will be saved. The destroyer will pass over your house. The lambs died so the sons didn't have to. Over and over again, when there was trouble, God sent a sheep to die so his people didn't have to. Until finally, God revealed his final rescue plan. The previews were over. It was time for the feature presentation. At last, Jesus, the rescuer, came. He lived on earth just like us, but then he died to take away the punishment we deserved. Jesus died so we don't have to. But guess what else? Jesus didn't stay dead like the sheep. He came back to life and went up to heaven. Now we can be close to God again. And one day, he'll recreate a perfect world for God's whole family to live in forever. Just like the original garden, but better. And that's the story of how God prepared us for Jesus. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Death separated us from God. God planned a great rescue. He gave us previews. A ram died so Isaac didn't have to. Lambs died so the Israelite sons didn't have to. Finally, Jesus died so we don't have to. But Jesus came back to life. Now death can't separate us from God. And that's a part of God's story.
Cool. So people knew something good was coming because God told them. He had a plan to be close with them. They just didn't know what the plan was or when it was going to happen. Turns out it was Jesus.
Yeah, we celebrate Jesus being born on Christmas Day, but we celebrate waiting and preparing for Jesus during Advent.
Exactly.
Now there's something I can't wait for anymore.
What's that?
For you to open your presents.
Oh yeah, let's find out what's in here.
Wow. Oh, I like yours.
Yeah.
Nice. Now we all look sharp.
Yeah, we sure do. These sweaters were definitely worth waiting for. Now, do you guys want to learn a little more about Advent?
Absolutely.
Oh, there's more?
Uh-huh. But we'll have to take a quick trip.
Oh, well, where we go? Never mind. I bet we have to wait to find out.
Now you're getting the idea.
Looks like we're about to go on an adventure.
Ooh, that was a good one. What is Advent? Maybe you've heard the word before. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you celebrate it every year. Maybe it's a totally new idea to you. Either way, let's find out more. The word Advent means the arrival of something important. Some people celebrate Advent every year. It's one of their Christmas traditions. They might light a candle every Sunday in Advent, or read certain stories and verses in the Bible every year. Some people have Advent calendars. Every day from December 1st to Christmas Eve, they open a window in the calendar and get something special, a piece of candy, or a toy, or some other treat. Maybe you've even had one of these, but weren't sure what they were for. All of these things, the candles, the verses, and the calendars, are all to help us remember that Christmas is about celebrating Jesus' birthday. Remember, the word Advent means the arrival of something important. To put it a different way, Advent means something good is coming, but it's not here yet. So when we celebrate Advent, we remember that God's people had to wait a long time for Jesus to be born. We don't have to wait for Jesus to be born anymore because that already happened. But we can still pray for Jesus' kingdom to come every single day. Jesus told his followers that he would come back and make the world perfect again. And since the world's not perfect yet, it means we're still waiting for that. Something good is coming, but it's not here yet. So while we wait, we remember. And that's Advent.
Okay, fellas, this is it.
What is it?
Can't tell you. You're gonna have to wait to find out.
I knew that was coming.
But I can show you a clue. See if you can figure out what they make at this special place. Watch this.
Wait! I'm almost positive I know, but can I have one more clue?
Yes. Here's a riddle to help you out. What did the gingerbread man use when he sprained his ankle?
Candy canes! This is a candy cane factory?
Yeah, it sure is. Now let's go see the final step in the candy cane making process. Yes. This is where they hook the candy canes or bend them to make that special candy cane shape.
Wow, this is cool. And I think I noticed something.
What?
Making candy canes requires some waiting and preparing, just like we've been talking about.
Yes.
First, a candy maker.
They're called sugar smiths, if you want to be technical.
And I do. The sugarsmith mixes the ingredients.
That takes time.
Yep. And then they have to stretch it.
That takes a while.
Then they add the color.
A little more waiting.
But then there's a moment when the waiting is over, and it's time to give the candy canes their special shape.
Yes, and you have to be ready. If you miss it, the candy canes get hard and crunchy, and if you try to shape them, they'll just break.
Whoa. So, when you make a candy cane, there's some waiting, but you also have to be prepared to move at the right time so the candy canes turn out the way that you want them to.
It's all coming together now. Who knew candy canes could teach us so much?
So, to recap,
Recap!
thank you. Advent is when we remember that God's special family had to wait and prepare for a rescuer. But guess what?
Oh, can I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. The good news for us is that we don't have to wait to know what God's rescue plan is. We know it's Jesus.
Yeah, and we don't have to wait to follow him. We can start doing that right away. Right now.
Or now.
Or now.
Oh.
The time is always right to follow Jesus.
It sure is. And hey, look, candy canes can help us remember Jesus every time we see them.
How's that?
Oh, well, if I turn this candy cane upside down, it looks like the letter J, as in Jesus.
Oh, pretty sweet.
Good one. Merry Christmas and
Happy Advent!